99% of people react, 1% decide. That's the difference. Not talent, not luck, not connections, not genetics. Reaction versus decision. Most people wake up and immediately surrender their mental state to notifications, opinions, expectations, and impulses. A comment shifts their mood. A delay triggers anxiety. A criticism sparks defense. A compliment inflates ego. Their emotional climate is outsourced, and they wonder why they feel behind. Because when you are constantly reacting, you are never directing. The 99% live in response mode. They answer before thinking. They chase before evaluating. They argue before understanding. They quit before compounding. And every impulsive reaction costs them momentum. The 1% operate differently. They pause. They observe. They filter. They choose. Not because they are emotionless, but because they understand something dangerous. Attention is power, and reaction is surrender. The person who controls their reaction controls the dynamic. The person who controls their attention controls their direction. Most people cannot sit in a silence without reaching for distraction. Most people cannot face discomfort without escaping it. Most people cannot delay gratification without rationalizing indulgence. That is why most people stay average. Not because they lack intelligence, but because they lack discipline over their internal state. This mindset, the ability to stay calm, focused, and deliberate when others are reactive, separates you quietly. You won't see it in a week. You won't feel it in a month. But in 5 years, the gap becomes impossible to ignore. Because calm compounds, discipline compounds, silence compounds, and reaction decays. In this video, we're breaking down the mindset that quietly pulls you ahead of 99%, without noise, without hype, without chasing validation, just control. And once you see it, you won't unsee it. If you're building internal leverage instead of external noise, subscribe to Quiet Power. We don't chase motivation. We build discipline. Now let's break the mindset down. The majority of people believe they are thinking independently. They are not. They are reacting. Reaction feels like decision because it happens quickly. It carries emotion. It feels urgent. But urgency is rarely alignment. Urgency is usually stimulus-driven. A message arrives. You respond instantly. A criticism appears. You defend immediately. An opportunity looks exciting. You commit without evaluation. A setback stings. You withdraw prematurely. Each of these moments feels small, but small reactions repeated daily shape direction. Direction determines destiny. The reactive mind operates on impulse loops. Stimulus enters. Emotion activates. Behavior follows. Reflection happens afterward, if at all. This sequence keeps most people trapped in short-term thinking. Short-term thinking produces short-term results. A disciplined mind interrupts this loop. Stimulus enters. Pause. Observation. Evaluation. Then response. That pause is invisible externally, but internally, it changes everything. In that pause, you regain authority. Authority over tone. Authority over words. Authority over time. Authority over focus. Most people never cultivate this pause because the modern environment is engineered to eliminate it. Notifications are designed to provoke immediate engagement. Social media is designed to trigger comparison. News cycles are designed to activate outrage. Consumer culture is designed to stimulate desire. The reactive person becomes predictable. Predictability invites manipulation. If someone knows what will trigger you, they can control your behavior indirectly. Anger becomes a button. Validation becomes a leash. Fear becomes a steering wheel. The 99% do not realize how often they are being steered. They argue online with strangers they will never meet. They compare their beginning to someone else's highlight. They chase trends instead of building foundations. They abandon long-term plans because short-term emotion felt stronger. Emotion is not the enemy. Unexamined emotion is. When you allow every emotion to dictate behavior, you fragment your direction. One week you are disciplined. The next week you are distracted. 1 month you are consistent. The next month you are discouraged. Fragmentation prevents compounding. Compounding requires stability. Stability requires emotional regulation. Emotional regulation requires awareness. Awareness requires silence. Silence is rare. Most people fill silence instantly. Music, podcasts, scrolling, conversation. Noise becomes anesthesia. But noise prevents reflection. Without reflection, you repeat patterns unconsciously. Repetition without awareness is stagnation. The mindset that separates you begins with discomfort tolerance. Can you sit with boredom without escaping? Can you receive criticism without defending instantly? Can you experience anxiety without abandoning direction? Can you feel the urge to react and choose not to? These are small moments, but they define separation. Because most people cannot tolerate internal discomfort for more than a few seconds before seeking relief. Relief feels productive. It is not. It is temporary regulation through external stimulus. True regulation comes from containment. Containment means holding emotion without immediate discharge. When someone insults you, the reactive impulse is to retaliate. Retaliation feels strong. But strength is not volume. Strength is control. When someone ignores you, the reactive impulse is to chase. Chasing feels proactive. But proactivity without evaluation is insecurity disguised as action. When progress feels slow, the reactive impulse is to pivot dramatically. Pivoting feels decisive. But decision without patience disrupts momentum. The 99% pivot constantly. They start projects enthusiastically. They quit quietly. They restart elsewhere. They abandon again. Each cycle feels like fresh energy. But it is fragmented focus. Fragmented focus prevents mastery. Mastery requires repetition beyond boredom. Boredom is the wall most people hit and retreat from. The disciplined mind walks through it. This is not about suppressing personality. It is about structuring it. The person who can delay reaction gains clarity. The person who gains clarity makes better decisions. Better decisions repeated over years produce disproportionate results. Disproportionate results look like talent from the outside, but they are restraint accumulated over time. The 99% chase stimulation. The 1% build systems. The 99% chase recognition. The 1% chase refinement. The 99% react to circumstances. The 1% respond to values. Values anchor direction. Reaction drifts with environment. If your mood depends on feedback, your output fluctuates. If your motivation depends on excitement, your discipline collapses under boredom. If your confidence depends on approval, your decisions bend under pressure. The separating mindset detaches performance from emotion. You execute whether you feel inspired or not. You remain composed whether praised or criticized. You maintain focus whether noticed or ignored. Consistency beats intensity. Intensity fades. Consistency compounds. The 99% overestimate what they can do in a week and underestimate what disciplined calm can produce in 5 years. They burn fast. You build slow. And slow building, sustained without emotional volatility, becomes unstoppable. Most people don't lose because they're incapable. They lose because they are scattered. Their attention is fragmented across notifications, opinions, arguments, cravings, trends, and emotional reactions that have nothing to do with their actual future. The modern world rewards urgency, noise, and visibility, but long-term dominance is built on something much quieter: sustained focus. This is where the separation begins. The 99% live in reaction loops. They wake up and check their phone before they check their mind. They consume before they create. They respond before they reflect. Their day is shaped by whatever demands their attention the loudest. And because attention is the most valuable currency in the modern world, whoever controls it controls the direction of their life. The quiet power mindset understands this. Attention is not something you give freely. It is something you guard with discipline. When you decide what deserves your focus and, more importantly, what doesn't, you start moving differently. You stop arguing with strangers online. You stop trying to win conversations that don't change your future. You stop explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. Every time you refuse to react, you reclaim energy. And energy, directed consistently, becomes momentum. The 1% think in terms of compounding. They understand that small, repeated behaviors over years create massive divergence. 1 hour of focused work every day is 365 hours a year. 10 years of that is 3,650 hours of deliberate effort. Meanwhile, the 99% spend those same hours scrolling, venting, comparing, and restarting. The difference isn't intelligence. It's direction. It's choosing to endure boredom instead of chasing stimulation. Boredom is the gatekeeper of mastery. Most people can't sit with it. They need constant novelty. But if you can sit in the quiet discomfort of repetition training, studying, building, refining, you separate yourself automatically. Not loudly, not dramatically, quietly, and permanently. Another shift happens when you detach from immediate validation. The 99% need to be seen progressing. They announce goals before they've built discipline. They crave applause for beginnings instead of results for endings. But the quiet power mindset operates in private. You let results speak because results don't argue. When you remove the need to be acknowledged in real time, you become more dangerous over time. You build without pressure. You refine without interruption. You improve without broadcasting. And while others are managing perception, you are managing skill. Over years, that gap becomes impossible to close. There's also emotional discipline. Attention is not only about what you look at, it's about what you emotionally invest in. Most people donate emotional energy to people who have no stake in their future. They replay insults. They obsess over rejection. They mentally argue with ghosts. The 1% understand that emotional fixation is a tax on productivity. If it doesn't build you, it doesn't deserve extended residence in your mind. This doesn't mean you suppress emotion. It means you process it efficiently. You feel it, learn from it, and release it. You don't carry it like luggage into every new opportunity. The ability to reset quickly after setbacks is a massive advantage. While others spiral for weeks, you recalibrate in hours. That speed of recovery compounds just as much as focused work does. Then comes long-term thinking. The 99% evaluate progress weekly. The 1% evaluate it yearly. When your timeline expands, your patience strengthens. You stop quitting things that haven't had time to mature. You stop chasing shortcuts because you understand the math of depth. Real advantage comes from staying in the same lane longer than most people are willing to. Trends shift, algorithms change, markets fluctuate. But skill built over a decade doesn't disappear. Discipline trained over years doesn't evaporate under pressure. The quiet power mindset locks in on long arcs. 5 years, 10 years, 15. And once you start thinking that way, daily temptations lose their intensity. You're no longer optimizing for today's applause. You're optimizing for future leverage. There's also strategic silence. The 99% reveal everything: plans, insecurities, strategies. They speak to relieve pressure. But the 1% understand that silence preserves advantage. Not every thought needs expression. Not every plan needs exposure. When you speak less, You observe more. When you observe more, you predict better. And when you predict better, you move with precision instead of emotion. Silence isn't weakness. It's data collection. It's emotional regulation. It's restraint in a world addicted to broadcasting. Finally, there's consistency without drama. Most people are intense for a week and invisible for a month. They rely on motivation, but motivation is unstable. The quiet power mindset replaces motivation with systems. Fixed hours, non-negotiable routines, clear priorities. You don't wake up asking how you feel about progress. You execute regardless. Feelings fluctuate, systems compound, and over years, the person who shows up calmly every day surpasses the one who shows up passionately sometimes. This is the real separation. It's not charisma. It's not luck. It's not loud ambition. It's disciplined attention, emotional restraint, long-term thinking, silent consistency. When you master these, you don't need to compete aggressively. You don't need to prove superiority. You simply operate on a different level of control. And control over your time, your focus, your reactions, is the quiet edge that 99% never develop. Control is not dramatic. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't post motivational quotes at midnight or argue philosophy in comment sections. It simply shows up every day and does what needs to be done without negotiation. That's the part most people underestimate. They think advantage comes from intensity. But intensity is unstable. Control is steady. And steady wins long games. When you begin mastering your attention, something subtle happens. You become less predictable. The 99% react on impulse. You can almost script their behavior. Criticize them, they defend immediately. Ignore them, they chase. Challenge them, they escalate. Praise them, they relax. Their emotional triggers are exposed and easy to manipulate. But when you pause before reacting, when you filter emotion through discipline, you become unreadable. And unreadable people are difficult to control. This is power most people never cultivate. Imagine two individuals in the same room. One is constantly checking their phone, scanning for updates, responding instantly to every vibration. The other keeps their device face down, eyes forward, fully present. Who has more control? The second person isn't more intelligent. They're simply more deliberate. That deliberateness extends into every area of life. They don't rush decisions because of pressure. They don't accept invitations out of fear of missing out. They don't abandon plans because something shinier appears. They understand that distraction is the tax you pay for lack of direction. The quiet power mindset defines direction clearly. What are you building? Who are you becoming? What skill are you sharpening over the next 5 years? When those answers are precise, distractions lose their charm. You start asking a simple filter question. Does this move me forward? If the answer is no, it doesn't receive your time. It doesn't receive your attention. It doesn't receive your emotional energy. And here's where most people fail. They confuse activity with progress. Being busy feels productive. Responding quickly feels efficient. Multitasking feels advanced. But scattered effort produces scattered results. Depth produces leverage. When you commit to single task focus, one project, one priority, one growth path, you increase your surface area for mastery. It's not glamorous. It's not instantly rewarding, but it compounds quietly. The world will try to convince you that speed is everything, that if you're not moving fast, you're falling behind. But speed without clarity leads to burnout. You sprint in the wrong direction and call it ambition. The quiet power approach is different. It values precision over pace. You move when the direction is correct. You pause when the emotion is loud. You choose deliberately instead of reacting reflexively. This also changes how you handle comparison. The 99% constantly measure themselves against curated snapshots of other people's lives. They scroll and absorb highlight reels, then feel inadequate about their behind the scenes. That comparison erodes focus. It creates anxiety. It triggers impulsive decisions, switching paths, abandoning progress, chasing someone else's strategy. But when your attention is internal on your metrics, your standards, your timeline, comparison loses influence. You're not racing strangers. You're refining yourself. Emotional neutrality becomes your default state. Not coldness, not apathy, neutrality. Praise doesn't inflate you. Criticism doesn't derail you. Rejection doesn't collapse you. Success doesn't distract you. You acknowledge all of it, but you don't attach your identity to any of it. That detachment creates stability, and stability allows long-term growth. The 99% burn energy trying to be understood. They over-explain decisions. They seek validation for unconventional paths. They defend boundaries aggressively because they feel guilty enforcing them. But when you trust your direction, you stop seeking permission. You don't need consensus. You don't need applause. You move because the decision aligns with your long-term vision, not because it satisfies short-term approval. And over time, this creates something powerful. Internal certainty. Not arrogance. Certainty. The quiet confidence that comes from repeated self-discipline. When you prove to yourself daily that you can control impulses, delay gratification, stay focused despite boredom, your self-trust strengthens. And self-trust is the foundation of resilience. If you trust yourself to stay consistent, setbacks don't scare you. They become temporary obstacles, not identity threats. There's also a shift in how you consume information. The 99% consume endlessly. Podcasts, posts, videos, opinions. Information becomes entertainment. But the 1% consume selectively and implement aggressively. If they read something useful, they apply it. If they watch something valuable, they extract one actionable principle. They don't binge inspiration, they extract leverage. This is where compounding accelerates. Because once you stop scattering attention, your learning deepens. You notice patterns others miss. You connect ideas across disciplines. You refine techniques instead of restarting from scratch. Your progress becomes exponential, not linear. And from the outside, it looks sudden. People say you blew up or got lucky, but they didn't see the years of silent repetition. They didn't see the evenings you chose discipline over distraction. They didn't see the moments you swallowed your ego instead of escalating conflict. The quiet power mindset doesn't seek visibility during growth. It seeks strength. And strength built quietly is rarely shaken publicly. This is the separation point. Not talent, not charisma, not shortcuts, but attention mastered, emotions regulated, direction clarified, and discipline repeated without drama. When you operate like this, you don't need to outperform 99% aggressively. They eliminate themselves through inconsistency, distraction, and emotional volatility. You simply stay steady. And steady, over years, becomes unstoppable. Consistency is where the real separation hardens. Most people start strong. They're energized by novelty. A new plan, a new goal, a new identity. But novelty fades. Motivation drops. Excitement dissolves into routine. And routine is where the 99% quietly surrender. They don't announce it. They just slowly reduce effort. They negotiate with their standards. They skip one day, then two. Then they redefine their goal to fit their lowered discipline. You don't. A quiet power mindset understands something dangerous. The version of you that feels motivated is unreliable. A version of you that feels bored is predictable. So instead of building your life around emotion, you build it around structure. You create systems that function whether you feel inspired or not. You train at the same hour. You work at the same depth. You rest deliberately, not impulsively. This is not robotic. It's strategic, because emotions fluctuate. But identity, when reinforced daily, stabilizes. When you repeatedly act like someone disciplined, you stop needing to convince yourself. You stop debating internally. The decision is already made. This is what I do. That sentence becomes automatic. The 99% wait to feel ready. The 1% act and let readiness catch up. There's also another layer most people ignore. Energy management. Not time management. Energy management. You can have 8 free hours and still produce nothing if your mind is scattered. But one focused hour with controlled energy can outperform an entire distracted day. So you begin protecting your energy like currency. You reduce arguments that don't matter. You limit exposure to negativity. You stop entertaining drama disguised as connection. You recognize that every unnecessary emotional spike drains cognitive clarity, and clarity is leverage. You also become selective about who gets access to you, not from ego, but from awareness. If someone constantly pulls you into chaos, you step back. If someone drains momentum with gossip and comparison, you reduce engagement. Not dramatically, not angrily, just quietly. Because protecting your trajectory requires protecting your environment. And environment shapes behavior more than willpower ever will. The 99% rely on bursts of self-control while living in systems designed to sabotage them. Endless notifications, unstructured days, reactive schedules. They try to fight distraction with discipline alone. But discipline erodes under constant friction. So you remove friction. You simplify. You reduce decisions. You make progress automatic. When healthy food is prepared, you eat better. When your workspace is organized, you focus deeper. When your goals are written clearly, you act faster. These are small adjustments, but small adjustments repeated daily compound into identity shifts. This is how separation widens quietly. You stop chasing intensity and start respecting sustainability. You realize that burning out impresses no one. Slow, steady accumulation of skill is more dangerous than flashy inconsistency. The person who improves 1% daily eventually surpasses the person who spikes 20% occasionally and then collapses. But the mind resists slow progress. It wants immediate proof, immediate validation, immediate results. So you train patience like a skill. You learn to tolerate delayed gratification. You measure success not by applause, but by adherence. Did you execute the plan? Did you honor your standard? That becomes enough. Over time, something subtle shifts inside you. Pressure decreases. Urgency becomes calm focus. You no longer feel behind because you're not competing externally. You're building internally. And internal builders are hard to shake. This also changes how you handle failure. The 99% interpret failure as identity confirmation. I'm not good enough. So they retreat. But you interpret failure as data. What broke? What can be refined? What skill needs strengthening? You detach ego from outcome. And once ego is removed, improvement accelerates. Ego is heavy. It slows learning. It resists correction. It defends mistakes. When you drop it, feedback becomes valuable instead of threatening. You can adjust without emotional collapse. You can pivot without embarrassment. You can admit ignorance without insecurity. And that makes you dangerous in long-term arenas. Because while others protect their image, you sharpen your edge. Another separation point is silence. The 99% announce plans before executing them. They broadcast intentions for validation. They mistake external acknowledgement for internal commitment. But you move differently. You execute first. You speak later. If at all, silence creates psychological leverage. People underestimate you. They assume inactivity because they don't see motion. But motion doesn't require an audience. Growth doesn't need witnesses. And when results eventually surface, they seem sudden. But they were never sudden. They were just silent. This is the quiet power advantage. Invisibility during preparation. Inevitability during emergence. And the more you practice this mindset, the less reactive you become to external noise. Trends don't shake you. Opinions don't redirect you. Criticism doesn't destabilize you. You filter everything through one question. Does this align with who I am building? If yes, you integrate it. If no, you ignore it. That level of internal filtration is rare. It means you don't consume outrage for entertainment. You don't adopt beliefs because they're popular. You don't change direction because others are accelerating faster in a different lane. You stay in your lane. And over years, staying in your lane builds depth that speed can't replicate. And here's the paradox. The more independent you become internally, the less you need to prove externally. You stop arguing online. You stop seeking recognition in rooms that don't matter. You stop overextending to impress people who won't influence your future. Instead, you channel everything into capability. Because capability compounds into confidence. And confidence built on capability doesn't need volume. It's quiet, measured, stable. This mindset doesn't promise overnight transformation. It promises separation through sustained discipline. It promises clarity through emotional control. It promises strength through structure. And if you maintain it long enough, something undeniable happens. You stop chasing opportunity. Opportunity starts noticing you. Not because you shouted the loudest. Not because you networked the hardest. But because you became consistent, controlled, and composed in a world addicted to chaos. That's the difference. That's the edge. And that's how you quietly step ahead of 99%, not through noise, but through mastery. No one sees until it's too late for them to catch up. Most people never realize the trap they are living inside. They think they are choosing their path, but they are reacting. Reacting to notifications, reacting to opinions, reacting to trends, reacting to fear. And every reaction costs energy. The mindset that separates you from the 99% is not louder ambition. It is disciplined non-reaction. When someone disrespects you, the average person explodes or collapses. When someone doubts you, they argue. When someone ignores them, they chase. But the 1%? They observe. They assess. They conserve. Because they understand something dangerous. Attention is currency. Emotion is leverage. Silence is control. And control is power. The world is engineered to provoke you. Outrage spreads faster than reason. Trauma spreads faster than competence. Conflict spreads faster than mastery. So the crowd trains itself to respond instantly. But instant response is weakness disguised as strength. The strongest person in the room is not the one speaking. It's the one who decides whether speaking is necessary at all. That is the mindset shift. You stop proving. You stop explaining. You stop reacting. And suddenly, you become unpredictable. And unpredictability is intimidating. People cannot manipulate what they cannot read. They cannot control what they cannot provoke. They cannot compete with someone who refuses to enter the arena of noise. This is why when you change internally, your external world begins to shift. Some people will fall away. Not because you hurt them, but because they fed on your reactions. They fed on your reassurance. They fed on your validation. They fed on your emotional availability. When that supply disappears, so do they. And that is not loss. That is filtration. The 1% mindset understands that growth requires subtraction. Less distraction, less explanation, less emotional leakage, less accessibility, more clarity, more boundaries, more focus, more depth. You stop measuring your progress against applause. You measure it against alignment. Are your actions aligned with your long-term vision? Or are they aligned with temporary approval? The crowd optimizes for comfort. The 1% optimizes for consequence. They ask, if I repeat this behavior for 5 years, who will I become? And if the answer is average, they change it immediately. This is the real separation. Not talent, not luck, not privilege. Relentless internal standards. The 99% negotiates with their own discipline. I'll start tomorrow. Just this once. I deserve a break. The 1% negotiates with results. They understand that identity is built through repetition. And repetition is built through uncomfortable consistency. They don't wait to feel motivated. They move while feeling resistance. They don't wait to be understood. They act while being misunderstood. They don't wait to be confident. They build competence until confidence becomes irrelevant. This is the silent grind no one sees. The early mornings, the isolated focus, the uncomfortable self-analysis, the brutal honesty. And it's brutal because most people avoid looking at themselves deeply. It's easier to blame the world than audit your patterns. But the 1% audits constantly. Where did I waste energy? Where did I speak unnecessarily? Where did I allow emotion to override strategy? This is not self-criticism. It is self-calibration. And calibration compounds. Over months, your decisions sharpen. Over years, your trajectory diverges completely from the crowd. You don't look different in a day. You look unrecognizable in 5 years. That is the power of invisible separation. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Once you adopt this mindset, you can't go back. Noise feels exhausting. Drama feels childish. Approval feels cheap. You start craving depth, silence, execution. You become less impressed by talk and more obsessed with action. And that's when something shifts in how others treat you. Because people sense internal stability. They sense when someone is no longer seeking validation. They sense when someone cannot be emotionally cornered, and instinctively, they adjust. Some respect you, some resent you, some test you, but none of them ignore you, because stillness at that level is rare, and rarity commands attention without asking for it. This is how you get ahead of 99% of people, not by competing louder, but by detaching deeper, not by chasing opportunities, but by becoming so disciplined that opportunities chase alignment, not by demanding respect, but by embodying standards so quietly strong that disrespect feels irrational. The separation isn't flashy, it's internal. It's the moment you decide, my emotions will not be publicly negotiable. My focus will not be cheaply accessible. My time will not be freely consumed. From that moment forward, everything changes. Your circle changes. Your habits change. Your outcomes change. Because mindset shapes behavior. Behavior shapes identity. Identity shapes destiny. And the 1% understand that destiny is not dramatic. It is repetitive. So they master the repetition. They master their impulses. They master their reactions. They master their attention. And when you master attention, you master direction. And when you master direction, you master distance. Distance from chaos. Distance from mediocrity. Distance from the average timeline. This is the quiet power advantage, not aggressive dominance. Not public superiority, but internal command. And once you experience internal command, you will never crave external noise again. If this mindset resonates with you, don't just watch it, practice it. For the next 7 days, observe your reactions before you act. Speak less, explain less, react slower, focus deeper. Then come back and tell me what changed. Because quiet power isn't theory, it's execution. And if you're serious about separating yourself from the 99%, subscribe now, not for motivation, but for mastery. This channel isn't for everyone. It's for the few who understand that silence is strategy, and strategy is power.